And just like that, another fantastic week of football in the books. But ladies and gentlemen, it's fantasy playoff season. So today is simple. Week 14 waivers on tap today. Let's get into it. Kicking off here with a sleeping giant in Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, NWI for short. If you're not familiar, he is the wide receiver 2 there in Tennessee for the Titans, but he's owned in 17% of Yahoo leagues, 20% in ESPN, and just about the same on other platforms. But why do we want to grab this guy for the playoff run? Well, I'll tell you why. Over the last 7 weeks, so a large sample size, he's the wide receiver 15, averaging 14 to 15 fantasy points a game in full PPR formats. He's also getting the volume. He's not just a guy that is scoring a ton of touchdowns, which he is, by the way. He's still getting 5 targets a game, whether if that's Mason Rudolph or Will Levis at the quarterback position. So again, Calvin Ridley gets a lot of attention. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine sneakily has had a lot of great productive weeks. So again, as we close off this season in fantasy, we want to know what we're getting out of these waiver pickups and drops. So Westbrook-Ikhine, I think you know what you're getting. The last player that I want to highlight is Chris Rodriguez, a guy that, similar to last year around fantasy playoff time, he's a hot commodity. He is not owned in a 1% of Yahoo or ESPN leagues, so he is available. And I think if you're in a league with a lot of fab money, this is a guy that you want to blow a lot of money on. Now, last year, he was used in a similar role, and that's why I'm confident that he needs to be a top waiver priority in Week 14 of this season. Austin Ekeler, if you didn't know, now you know. He is on IR, pretty much done for our fantasy season. So, last week, Chris Rodriguez was given a bigger role, and I think he executed. 13 total touches, 90 plus yards on the ground, and a touchdown with 15 fantasy points on the day. This is a guy that doesn't rely solely on the ground. He doesn't rely solely through the air. This is a guy that can do a little bit of everything, like an Austin Ekeler, and I think on our rosters, he needs to be on there, especially if something happens to Brian Robinson. But let's get into a full recap here. Again, at the quarterback position, it is still Mr. Unlimited, a guy that just had another 25-point performance last week. And again, he's only owned in about 35 to 40% of your Yahoo and ESPN leagues. He needs to be on your roster. Chris Rodriguez, we highlighted him. Kamani Vidal, a guy that, again, Gus Edwards has been okay since the absence of J.K. Dobbins. I wouldn't be shocked if Vidal gets a little bit more involved here for our fantasy playoff run. So at the bare minimum, if you have a roster spot, grab Vidal and let's see what we have out of him. So stash him, for other words. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine, we talked about, needs to be on your roster. Calvin Austin III. Now, I know he got hurt in the Bengals game this past week, so just be on the lookout. If he's going to be healthy going forward, I like him as a stash option with how much he's been involved in that Pittsburgh offense. Another wide receiver is Parker Washington, a guy that, whether if it's Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones, we've seen at this point in time, he's going to get his involvement. Now, he's barely owned in either Yahoo or ESPN leagues, so he's on your waivers, and it's another great stash option at this point. Now, another guy we always talk about is Ray McCloud. He is out there in a lot of leagues as well, so go after Ray McCloud, plays for the Falcons, and, Darnell Moody's dealing with that injury still, his leg, so Ray should be a decent option as well at the receiver position. Now, Pat Freiermuth at the tight end position, he's probably not going to be there, right? 50% Yahoo, 40% in ESPN, but a guy that is getting more and more involved week after week in that Pittsburgh offense. He needs to be, I'll say this, he could be a starter on your team at this point in the year. Noah Gray for Kansas City, killing it there. Of course, 3 straight good weeks as Kelsey gets all the attention. Austin Hooper, again, another stash option, a guy that has had 2 really, really good weeks back-to-back, has found the end zone in back-to-back weeks there in that Drake May-led offense, and he's only owned in 1% of leagues. So again, if you have an extra roster spot, let's stash Austin Hooper. To close off the list, Jason Myers, if you need a kicker. This Seattle offense is good, but they're far from great, and they're very inconsistent. So, again, they're very good at getting past the 50-yard line. They struggle when it comes to converting into the red zone, so that leads to a lot of field goal opportunities, which is why I like Jason Myers. But short and sweet, to the point, that's what we like to do on these Monday videos. So if you have any questions about your lineup, or you just want a second opinion, drop it in the comments. I'm here for you, and we can talk about what's best for your team.